Hey everybody, I got a good camera back. Hopefully you can hear me a little bit better and the video quality is a little bit better. Today we are taking another stab at our whole backend situation. Brief history. We used Firebase because I'd made this project before using Firebase Firestore, and it seemed to simplify a lot of things. You wouldn't have to have a whole backend server that we have to monitor, and I wouldn't have to learn how to use bcrypt or whatever it is for salting passwords. We started working on it, found some issues with security rules, specifically some difficulties with figuring out how to allow people to list things without allowing them to list everybody's thing. So allowing them to list all cards on a board without allowing them to list everyone's cards in the whole system. And despite some really maybe sloppy test writing as I learned to write unit tests, we figured out a potential solution, which is to actually nest our data using the Firestore in sub-collections, which we can query as lists. That might work. That might help solve our security rules problem. But using these sub-collections required us to solve some other problems, and so yesterday I think we sort of finally figured out how to get a board's information using just the board's ID when it's not in a top-level collection, when it's in one of these sub-collections. And so we built a proof of concept around that. And so that's encouraging. So today what we're going to do is we're going to try to finish this final proof of concept and say, okay, can we write these security rules in this new world that seem to work? Let's start writing some of the hardest ones. Rule by rule, using some of the lessons we learned from writing rules before. We being I, royal we. Can I write security rules that actually secure the database in Firestore using this new method? If we can, I'm cautiously optimistic about Firestore and saying, okay, well, we learned some things about how this product works. It took us a while. We went down some rabbit holes, but we're probably coming out on the other end with a system that lets us securely add and manage our data without having to use a backend, without having to use a database that we manage, any of that. Cautiously optimistic about that if today works. If today doesn't work, then we got a decision to make about how we're structuring our database and what kind of technology we're using for our backend. Now, the more I think about it, there are some things that we could definitely do that would give us some of the benefits of a traditional REST backend, traditional database without having to go all the way back to basics and learn bcrypt or whatever it is. One is that we can still reasonably, if I remember right, I'm remembering docs that I looked up a long time ago when I was writing Firefly. I think we can still use Firebase authentication with this because there's a way to authenticate Firebase on the back end. So we don't need to write our own auth layer. We can still just use a database for just user data. So that would be good if we end up going that way. We'll have to write a REST API with endpoints. Not the end of the world. Pretty easy, actually. I'll have to learn Mongoose or something that lets me do that easily in Node, and I never really learned that super well, so that would be something we learn on camera together. Firebase has these Firebase functions, so we don't have to write a backend server. We can just write our little functions in an Express app, most likely, and then hit up a database that way. And so that takes out some of the issues. We don't have to do all this load monitoring of servers or spinning up instances or anything. We can just use functions, little lambdas. So that would be a benefit. And we might be able to still use something like a Firestore database, just write security rules that block everything, and then actually use the functions which have unlimited permissions to query the database as we want to, and we could go back to a flat structure if we wanted to, and we could store the data in Firestore however we wanted. Of course, the other option would just be to use SQL and Postgres at that point. That might make more sense because then we have all the flexibility we need and we can actually run real queries and things like that. But I've just never written a production database and using a database before. I'm a front end guy, and so this is just me trying to keep up and do just enough back end to survive. So I think that wouldn't be so bad as it even would be a couple years ago. You can spin up a instance of Postgres or whatever in Google Cloud Platform. I've tried to do that before and run into some issues with permissioning or something. I forget what it was exactly. But it could be done. Like, that's a thing that people do all the time for every other project besides this one where I'm trying to get fancy. So that's sort of what's in my head about options. Either moving forward cautiously optimistic on the basis of writing some tests that we write today using lessons learned from the past few videos, or say goodbye to some of the Firestore conveniences, which have turned out to be not so convenient, and move to a more traditional backend. Not a completely traditional backend, but move to a backend that has a real REST API and Lambdas and a database. Okay, let's get started. Pull up my VS Code here. Alright, we're on our nested DB branch. And let's just pull up our Asana just to be ready. Divine Living, the essential guide to your truth. I get a random book that shows up in my browser every time. That's my personal Chrome. Let's go to Asana and see what we got. Why does it do that? All right. Definitely this is what's in progress and has been for some time. Yep. That's a summary of what we talked about yesterday. We've got a good idea of where we're at, and we've written it down. Excuse me. Okay, so let's get to writing some rules. First, I'm going to throw this up on GitHub because I want to go through and look at some of the rules I was writing in my other branches, because I think some of those branches had some good rule patterns. I remember when we were doing this, not that long ago, a couple videos ago, I was learning to write some rules, and then we went to a different branch because it was just not working the way we were writing them. But the rules that we did were, we learned some stuff. Rules, WIP. Let's make sure that gets up there too. Is that how that button works? Does that only show the current branch? Is that why I'm not seeing it here? I suppose it does. Okay. 6 days ago, 20 hours ago. Let's try to wake up here, folks. Got a slow start this morning. Sometimes these days are slow start days. Firestore rules on World Rules WIP. Wow, those rules are very WIP. Branch is this? This is what our current rules are like. Damn. Where were all those good rules that I wrote? Oh, under organizations. Let's throw that up there too. There we go. Those are the good rules. So I'm just going to have this up, move back to our nested DB branch. But now I can generally have my branch here and see the things that I did with these rules and get that working. So first thing we're going to do is just make it so that we can run this emulator stuff good. And what do we say for emulator? Let's make sure we have that. Oh, we got it. All right, I'm going to npm. What do we want to do? And this far one that you're not going to be able to see, I'm going to npm start just to get our app running. In this one, I'm going to npm run emulator. And in this one, I'm going to leave empty for now. Excuse me. npm test. Wow. Lots of failures. Okay. So in our organizations, we have our Firestore rules. We had our package, which was package lock, which is all good. Let's check out our tests. How much of this is up to date? Not a lot. So we went on this weird path of writing all these tests, like we're breaking or not breaking unreliably, and there were all these bugs that you'd find in the tests, and it was just kind of a mess. And it kind of reminds me of this thing that somebody told me where they said that the way to have great test coverage in an app is to like start writing good tests with your new features and then wait 2 years and keep writing features, and eventually you'll have good test coverage. And this was the opposite approach, and it was just a disaster. It's embarrassing that it's on video. Whatever. But we know what to do now. So these tests here, they're not, we got our rules here and we got our actual rules. So these rules are doing nothing. They're just totally letting everybody do whatever they want all the time. No wonder the tests are failing. And how many tests are there? There's a few. All right, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this first. I'm going to take all those, I'm going to copy and paste all this and just dump it into the other one. And we're going to trim it down to the very bare essentials. So that's all of our changes. Let's get it down to well, that makes sense. Let's start with boards. I think that's a reasonable place to start. Or maybe users. Boards is what we really need to figure out, but let's do users first because it'll be a little easier. We can just get warmed up. That's important. Okay. So users, we've got Alice and Bob set up here. We even have a non if we need them. Before users, yeah, I'm not sure we're going to use any of this stuff because it clears out the database. It clears out the database before each of these things. So these need to live in each test. For each, maybe. Yeah. So not let people see a list of all users. Collection users get. Should let people see a list of users in an org they are an admin of. Oh, this is interesting. Should let people see a single user's info. Anybody. You go to users and see Bob. Let's keep Bob. Should let people create or edit their own DB username. Alice set. So this has got to happen before some of these things. Let's get rid of before each and just put it in manually. Should not let people see a list of all users. I wonder if I can do this. VS Code is bad about knowing how to indent. Okay. So we have these two things at our disposal now. What is this doing here? Is that supposed to be there for all of them? What was I doing? Guys, this is crazy. I'm going to check that example situation. Do I really need to await there? Should I return? You do await. Okay. Cool. So we don't need anything new there. Users, Alice, delete. Let's duplicate this. Because that might change and it just makes more sense to me to do it this way. Alice trying to create delete bot. Okay. Computer's humming. Let's see if this works. Oh, not even close. What happened? Cannot read property collection of undefined. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be able to read that stuff. Because Alice doesn't exist. Because Alice is created before. Maybe we can do this. Maybe that'll work. If not, we'll just duplicate this all into each test. Okay. Create Alice user is not a function. Okay, guys. We're trying to get clever here with all this stuff. But let's just not. Let's just put it in there when it needs it. I'm just going to do it manually. There that is. And let's do the next one. These tests are going to be a little longer. That's fine. A little harder to read. We'll survive. Are these all async functions? They are. See how we do. Hey, 6 tests passing. That's good news, people. And how about our rules here? That's because we've written these rules that are pretty straightforward. You can get anything, you can list nothing, you can create an update, Now I'm going to even add a delete. And if these parameters are true, so that's good news. This is good stuff. Are we doing anything with this? No. Let's clean it up. Okay, guys. So we've got a nice clean set of user rules. This is just all TBD. We got to figure out this stuff. But our user rules are good. And our tests, this is a unnecessary distraction. Our tests are good too. For each that's good. I guess I had originally gotten rid of that. I don't know why. All right, users. Okay, the one thing we have to do for users is that piece there. Let's try what happens if I do this? Git move test rules.js test users we don't need a test users.js. Hey, that's nice. We got our own little users file, so now we're going to put the other ones in other files and have like a little bit more organization in our tests and not just a massive pile of crap. All right. Well, that's good. 6 passing. So let's give ourselves a little snapshot here. What have we changed? This users thing is new. Has been modified. Rules are different. Okay. Little commit here that says great. Done. So now we've got that working. We might want to actually take a stab at this, and if we can get it going, that'll help us with our whole process. We'll do this next. Basically what we're gonna do, didn't I have some like to-do list here? It shows me what I want to do. No. I guess I did. It was over here. That's putting us on the way to seeing if these security rules are okay. So basically, let's just keep chugging at these rules. Can we get these rules to basically work? The real test is not these rules right here. I think we kind of knew those were going to work. That was just getting us warmed up and ready. The next test is going to be this one, because this one involves organizations, which is something sort of new and novel. That'll be hard for us to figure out. But we should be able to do it based off of all the hints we have from our older self here. Like things like users, member of org, etc. And then the real tricky part is going to be this board stuff, organizations and cards and reactions and all of that. Oh, this is that list I was looking for. Yeah, okay. Let's just save this in our to-do list so we have it for later. Okay. All right. Now we're cooking with gas. I don't know why I say that. It's such a weird thing to say. Okay. You should be able to see a list of users in an org if you're an admin of that org. So that list has a caveat. Should let people see a single user's info. Create or edit. Okay. So, let's say that we have Alice, user. And this is a succeeds. We want to happen. And what do we want to have happen? What do I want to happen? We want Alice collection users where shit, how does this work? It's really just, it's actually an organization thing. Can she have access to an organization? She doesn't need a list of all the users. She just needs a list of the members. And so she might not even need to list if we do it that way I'm thinking of. So basically what I'm going to just say here is people. That makes sense. That's a better way to do that. Means we don't have to write this test because we don't have this condition at all. We'll put this note, excuse me, here, so we can remember it for later. And now that's good. Is good. And that's just part of the same commit we did before. Good. Now we're clean, actually clean. Let's see how to mocha multiple files, same before all. Like how do we split up multiple tests from multiple files and shit? We could just duplicate it, but I'd kind of rather not. Oof, guys, this is maybe harder than I thought. Okay, I changed my mind. I don't want to do any of that. So we're going to do this. We've moved this. We've got to change. Good. We've got our rules file here, and now we've got our DB rules testing. And we're going to go back to adding multiple stuff. All right, great. Users is done. Now, let's tackle boards. This is the moment of truth, people. This is kind of maybe like, can we make it happen? Because if we can't, we got a whole new world ahead of us. Let's see what we wrote for boards. We were screwing. That was ill-advised, it turns out. Because it wasn't before all. Okay. Users should not let people see a list of all boards. This doesn't exist anymore. Should let people see a list of all boards and orgs they are a member of. So there's no way to get a list of all boards anymore. This is the old world. Excuse me. These two are very interesting though. Those are important. I'm going to say this. So Alice is making a board in her org, and an anonymous person is going to try to see it, and that should work. Should let people see a list of all the boards and orgs they're a member of. So I'm going to say, oh wait, Alice. She's going to go in her Alice org and make a board. And what should succeed is Alice going in and seeing all boards. Collection organizations, .alice org, collection boards, get. She should be able to get all of those. But let's add another one. Assert fails if Bob tries to do the same thing. Firebase assert fails Bob collection organizations. Interesting. Okay. So what we have to really do is we have to set this Alice organization in advance. And with some attributes, specifically an attribute that says Alice is an owner of this org. I think that's how we were thinking of doing it. Does that work? Let's take it for let's take it for a spin now. It's going to fail because we haven't written those rules yet, but hopefully it should at least run the tests. Yeah. So should not let anybody. The one that everything worked because you can see all these things. Should let people see a list of boards, etc. The only one that didn't work is the one that says you should not let people see a list of all boards if you know the orgId. And that's because we haven't written a rule yet. It's all read write is true. So let's write some rules. Get is true. Let's write some rules. User is member of org. And we pass the organization ID. We should be able to just use that, because we know it from these being nested rules now. We need a function that says user is member of org. And it might be as simple as saying that same for these. You can create new boards, update them. You can delete them if you're a member of the org. We also have some other caveats, which is that the things you put, the attributes of that board have to be created by you. You can't say somebody else created it, even if you're in their organization. For now, nobody can delete boards. We're going to need this user equals function, which is very, very simple. But might as well have it. Maybe I can do that too. Okay, let's go back to our boards, rating boards. So people see a list, not let's see people see a list of boards. So we've only actually done these three here. We haven't actually done anything with this yet. Let's run and see what happens. Okay, we got a failure. Users should not let people see a list of all boards and orgs they are not a member of. Unfortunately, that is still allowed. Alright, should not let people see a list of all boards and orgs they are not a member of. So Bob went into collection organizations, went into Alice's organization, went to boards and did a get, and it succeeded. Why did that succeed given our rules here? Well, it's probably because of this, excuse me, this rule here. This is overriding it. And that's because we wrote this rule so that we could use our get board by ID stuff. Let's write another condition to capture that get board ID. Because that's not really how this is going to work. It's actually going to work like this. That's implied now. Organization, Alice word, board, spells board, set, Alice word, internal weight. So you're going to go in and you're going to see any board by ID. Organization stock, Alice org, collection boards. So Alex is going to create a board. And Anon is going to see it because it by the board's name, say in the URL. Curious to see if that works. Two failing. Timeout of 2 seconds exceeded. One, two. $52 minutes. Now, why would that take so long? It's the same page. Well, one thing is that we haven't set the ID here, so maybe that's why. It's a bit of a gamble, but it might help. I don't know why it would time out instead of fail. Still times out. For async tests and hooks, ensure done is called. I'm not doing that anywhere else. If a trainer promise, ensure it resolves. Oh. Totally new thing. Should not let people see a list of all users. Unknown. Okay. Let's try it again. What? Shut this emulator down. You never know, maybe we just need to restart there. Maybe it's freaking out with all this stuff we're doing. it's back to working. But we still have the timeout issue. This is the one that concerns me because if we got rid of these rules, I hopefully should be able to make that first failing one pass. Whoa. Broke it again. Wow, this stuff is kind of crappy. So I'm doing this, but I'm not even letting people do this. Users member of org. Because I haven't created an organization. Or I have, though. Organizations, Alice org, set members, Alice owner. Members. Oh. It's a collection of members. Well, let's try it that way then. Wonder if that'll work. No matching allow statements for should let people see a list of all boards and orgs they are a member of. Because we haven't allowed any. No, we've let you do organizations. We just haven't let people do members yet. So we got to do this real quick, I guess. What if we do that? No. Property created by is undefined on object. Right. Okay. This is good. We're like writing these the right way. It shouldn't be allowing that, and it's not, so that's nice. Let's see what happens. Oh, a lot are passing now. Only one's failing. Should let anyone view a board by ID. Permission denied. False for create. This might be progress. Should let anyone view any board pack. Should I false create? Let's try a different one of these to see if it's the stuff above or the stuff below. Organizations, Al's org. Boards. Al's board. So that should work for sure, right? See what happens. Oh, it still failed. Alice, collection organizations, doc, Alice org. Oh, well, we haven't created the org, right? We need to do this again, this whole deal. So we're setting her to be an owner. And we have, so this should hopefully pass. Nice, it does. Now, what if we get rid of the easy test and put in the real test? Is it going to time out? Oh, I think it is. So we might have some trouble writing tests for our ID situation. That's unfortunate. Let's see if the app should no longer work necessarily. Yep, we might have trouble getting the app to work because we removed these other rules, but we haven't pushed them to dev. Let's do that. So what I'm thinking is this. We've written tests. They test most of the database stuff. It's pretty good. It doesn't look like the collection group tests are going to work. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but most likely, you know, I very well might be doing something wrong. But the other option is that these collection group tests are just kind of long queries. Maybe the database isn't really set up for them, although it is. I did add an index to it. So maybe, you know, we're just sort of getting by with all these hacks to see if we can force Firestore to work. Maybe one of the hacks is that we can't write tests that test our collection group stuff, which would be a bit of a bummer. But we could always just make a note to test manually whenever we do something. Just, you know, have a console.log at the end of our test or something that says, you know, maybe, you know, we could write something here maybe to get these tests to pass, and then, manually test it, as long as we can get it to work. And maybe if we have some tests without coverage, that's fine. I don't love it at all, but again, if I have to have that versus rewriting in my entire backend for this project, I'd have that. Okay, so we're already on permission denied here. Just because we're not a member of our org. What's my ID? Okay. Does it exist now? Hey, I just gave myself access, permission to be in this meeting. Now, can I go to a board? No, I cannot go to a board. That's where it gets tricky. Get is true, but we need this special recursive deal. What if we just move the get to here? We're figuring this out. So let's go to the list of special create rules that allow your collection group queries. So let's look at this. This is the heart of the matter. How are we going to what does a collection group query really need? Is explicitly allow collection group queries by writing a rule for your collection group. Rule 2, new recursive wildcard. Write a rule for your collection group using match path, any path, collection ID doc. For example, consider a forum organized into forum documents containing posts as sub-collections. So here's the deal. This list thing. This is where we're going to get into trouble potentially. I'm gonna push this version up. Now, I don't know why they require this whole wildcard thing, because I know exactly where the board is, but it's because it's looking for anything where it might be. And that's just because they allow these infinitely nested random collections, which are so silly to me. So that's bad news, because what it means is I can't get this, because the way that I'm getting it is with a where and Firestore rules list. I think that requires the ability to list any of these. Applies to queries. That's what that where is. It's a query. What is that? What's an offset? Look, what I'm trying to figure out is, can I write this in such a way that first of all, can I do this path thing? Just put it before all this stuff, and maybe that would work. What I'm trying. All right, so here's the deal. Okay. To get a board, I write this down. Right now we gotta use a weird collection group query. That query requires a security rule to allow list on a collection. We don't want people to be able to list a collection of an org's boards. We don't want people to list a collection of an org's boards because that's a security thing. It doesn't. Not everybody should just be able to go and see any of that, unless the board. So some options. Security through obfuscation. Don't share org IDs with people. Not sure this is enforceable. Another option, could we make board join present links and invite collection that shares the full path of a meeting, including org and board, then write rules as we want to. That's a decent option. I think that might work. Oh, if you can't see this, I'm just fixing some notes for myself about how this all went down. Okay. We've learned some things in this past hour and a half. Jesus, it took a really long time. But I think we had a plan to test out some stuff. We tested it. It didn't work. I might come back with a fresh mind and test it again. But I think I have a pretty good understanding of what's going on and why this is all happening. I'm tempted to persevere and rewrite it the way I just described so that the join URLs are just really long, and maybe that's okay for now. I mean, maybe we just try it and see what happens, and maybe this all gets a lot simpler, and then we just use a URL shortener anyway. That URL shortener might end up, we don't want to use these URLs the way they are anyway. If we make the URL a little longer, that's fine, because by the time we get to a URL shortener, we would have needed that extra layer of abstraction on it anyway, because we don't want to use long IDs. We want to use easy to read words like in our prototype. So maybe we'll take a break. We've got good notes here. This is a potential problem. I'm gonna take a break, come back, and I think I'll spend a little bit more on this. Maybe even try that super long string stuff, and if that works, then maybe it'll be okay. And if not, then we'll go back to our option of REST APIs and doing it the normal way. Back in a bit. Hello, we're back. So I'm feeling a little discouraged, a little bit, because of all this Firestore stuff we've been doing, but I actually feel pretty good, a little bit calm, at peace, because I think I understand what's going on, and I feel some sense of resolution, or clarity around how all this stuff works. And I think the lesson that I learned is that in Firestore, the way that the database is structured using this nested stuff, the way these security rules work is that they might be able to be, they can be use them and do things, but you are going to have some ugly code because there's just the normalization stuff isn't super clean. But more importantly, you have to understand your database structure and how the rules are going to work first before you build your queries, and how before you build your app and understand how you're going to even ask for that data. You have to really understand how this stuff is going to work. You can't do them in parallel. And that is kind of antithetical for me to how software is developed for two reasons. One is that, I'm a front-end person, so I'm going to design the application, the user experience first, and then build the system beneath it to support the experience that I want. And I believe that fundamentally, that software does not exist to be a good database. It couldn't matter less. It matters that it has the result that people want, which is easy to use and simple. And if your technology doesn't support that, it might be nice enough to work in an organization that has that, but it has no relevance. It doesn't connect to the value that software has in organizations, which is that it takes a lot of the busy work out and allows people to level up and think at a higher level rather than to sort of, punch cards and move bits of data around manually. So it's antithetical for the reason that I'm a front-end developer, and I just also don't think it matches with startups where startups don't know what the product is when they launch. You don't. That's a bad idea to have this very clear, specific vision without putting it into the world. I'm nervous that if I get this working and then I do more user tests, I'm going to find out that the way I've structured these cards, for example, isn't really the way that people want to use them in meetings, and I have to figure out something new. And even a small change like adding some nested grouping or something could totally screw with my security rules, and it'll be too fragile to change. So that's a little scary. I do think, and maybe this is becoming a sort of a repeated, in the desert where you see somebody crawling along with like sand in their mouth and they're just trying to get water, and then they see the oasis and they climb over the hill and they get there and it's nothing. I feel like I'm constantly chasing these hacked solutions to the Firestore problems I'm having and getting there and understanding something, but the water is I'm never able to actually move forward in the application because there's some other issue. And so I'm going to chase another one of those today, just mostly because if I end up doing a REST UI, I'm not sure I want to do that on a fresh, where I'm fresh, starting new in the morning. And so since I'm on this theme today, I'm going to sort of try to bring it to its logical conclusion. I'm going to just play a little bit right now with looking back at what I've done and trying to understand it, and then maybe even considering that second option that I wrote up here, or the first one that I moved to the first one, that maybe this whole group sub-collection thing is just a bad idea, and it doesn't make sense, and we could get around it if we just knew the organization ID every time we needed to see a board, and that would make our URLs longer. But that's not that bad, and it would get us moving on and out of back-end code into building our product again. So I'm going to chase one more oasis over the desert maybe and see if I can't just make my URLs a little longer because of how freaking Firestore works, so that I can query it correctly with the right secure rules, and then maybe that'll be the end. Or maybe I'll just come up with a mouthful of sand in this analogy. We'll see. I think I saw a Donald Duck cartoon where he was doing that when I was a kid. It really stuck with me, apparently. All right, let's see let's look at the history of this mother. Example, nesting it. We did it. It worked, and it solved the fundamental problem of being able to search lists, I think. We haven't actually written those rules yet, but I think that's the case. All of these, I feel like I'm nostalgic for my little understanding of how this was all going to work before. Yep, working on that, yep. The root level collection doesn't allow me to write security rules for subdocuments based off parents, specifically listing, which I didn't mention here, which I think was the big reason that this was not going to work. Because lists are not, where does that Firestore say that? Rules are not filters. When writing queries to retrieve documents, keep in mind that security rules are not filters. Queries are all or nothing. Save you time and resources. Cloud Firestore evaluates a query against its potential result set instead of actual field values for all your documents. If a query could potentially return documents that the client does not have permission to read, the entire request fails. You cannot say which things you're allowed to query. You have to be able to get all or nothing, which is why you put them in these nested things. This, ladies and gentlemen, that is the crux. I know I saw that somewhere. That is the heart of the matter here. Oh, my phone died again. Hold on. Sorry, it says it runs out of space when it has plenty of space. I don't know why it does that. Guys, this is it. This is it right here. All this business. So, you know, I'm going to put a little to do here. So like we could maybe make this whole thing better by merging it with the rules down here. Like this is a little weird. But fundamentally, I think our method of getting things isn't going to work because of this rule. This is the problem. Can we list the board of an organization's boards or not? We should, if this person isn't a member or not. If we prevent them from listing it, we've secured it, but nobody can get to that access unless they're a member of our org. Access that board and query it using our get board by ID unless they're a member of our org because of how Firestore queries work. So this is just not tenable. It just ain't gonna work. So we're gonna save all this. Let's see what we've changed. Done some of this. We've added some rules. Okay. So this is actually really good news. Like this is progress. Like we've articulated the problem with the tech stack we have. We could go into a board meeting right now. I'll do it right now. I'm going to assemble the entire board of my company. Hey everybody, you're here. Welcome. Hey everybody, thanks for being here. Great. So what's the status with the tech update? Well, unfortunately, we made a decision based off the information we had, and the very talented Google marketing team, that we could use Firestore for a fairly simple application. But unfortunately, we ran into some very difficult issues that doesn't give us the flexibility we need in order to make sure our app is secure for our customers and also make it easy to access the specific things that you need to be able to access through simply a URL to make joining a meeting easily. So the consequences is that we're exploring a couple other options that might have a small impact on our user experience in ways that we could potentially address later. And although we have less experience with the tech stack with other tech stacks, we are very confident that we're pretty confident because we haven't done it before. We're hopeful that using a more conservative, standard, common tech stack of simply a database with SQL will allow us to write declarative code that fetches the right things for us rather than this Firebase security rules, which are imperative and experimental. And that'll give us more flexibility, but it might set us back in our time estimates, which is stuff that happens. So board meeting, okay, well, we understand it's unfortunate, but please keep us up to date with the technology progress. We'll do board meeting adjourned. Okay, so that's what we did. Now we're going to explore that and get back to our board stakeholders and tell them how our tech stack is going. So what about this? Let's go to our nested DB here. New branch from nested DB. Org IDs in URLs. So this branch, this world, what if we lived in a world where this whole bullshit, this stuff the collection group queries didn't exist. This board by ID doesn't exist because to get to a board in an invite, you gotta have the collection or the organization ID, and then it's as simple as getting the path from there. So we're just gonna play. We're gonna hang out. We're gonna play with this idea, just like we did with nested data, and we're gonna see how far it gets us. Well, the first thing I know is that I don't want to manage any of this state here. I want to go back to using create React Firestore for this, and I don't want to see that word, the collection group stuff, again. That is not what we want. So, yoink, we're just going to delete it. Now, unfortunately, our app is telling us it's broken because we were using that. So let's find out where we're using that and fix it. Board container. Board by ID. Ooh, match. Okay, so instead of board by ID here, we just want to get a Firestore document again. Back to Firestore document. With a path, which is, check this out. Params board ID. orgId. That's right. Error is loading data. And what we want to do, we want to have a better error page. We have loading pages, we need an error page. Great. On the to-do list. Board. Pro at this stuff by now. If that's unused, we'll just leave it there because that's our pattern. So this works the same, except we don't have that new thing we're referencing, except what we need is this params orgId in our board container. So if we go to our route here, when we're going board container up, board/board ID, what we really need is an orgId here now. So we'll update these, and then we'll find all the places where we're linking to this later. But that's a real deal. This is going to exist here too. Join and present are going to need an orgId. We know that. Might be all we need. Okay, let's go back to our board by ID. Where else are we using this? Join and present. As you'd expect. You gone. You back. That's that. That. All right, now let's actually do this. Firestore document, board ID. Well, it's a path, and the path is the same as before. VS Code is so bad at these indents. So we're using match here. Were we using match here? I think we were. Okay, and instead of board, we're getting data and snapshot. Board is data, snapshot. Board is, and so then we're just doing the same stuff. Boring, repetitive, but good old, it just does it. Okay, board, data. This is a board. Board is data, so we're passing as the board. The board ref we have now, so we're passing the board ref, and what does it want? The board ref. Done. Don't really need these, but that's fine. Okay, so you can't see this, so I'm gonna stop our emulator here and just get rid of these so I can show you. You can see what's going on. Join container, board is not defined. Did I just not save it? Great. Cards is assigned a value but never used. Oh yeah, we knew that. Great, so that's that. Now the problem is when we link to these boards, we're not actually linking to the URL that has the orgId in it, so we have to do that. Let's find where we do that. Those are our rules. That's not what we're talking about right now. Right, that's good. We just did that board. Board list wrapper, board list wrapper, 2 boards. So that's got to be, we need our org. Oh, we've got our org ref. Great. Where else were we using that here? Create? Yeah. So we're going to need that here too. That's a weird URL, so we'll think about that. We might want to fix that. Yeah. Let's move it to the front just because it's, I don't know how, I just want, for consistency's sake, these are weird URLs. We all know they're going to be weird. Whatever, you know. Well, this is the presenting slide manager. It doesn't need that condition anymore. Great. So these are the two that need the link. And we need to give them the org ref. So should we use context or should we pass it directly? Well, let's find out. How far up the chain does this go? We're in presenting welcome slides, so we want the presenter and slide manager. And again, this is just terrible how I've renamed these things here. What does the slide manager have? Well, let's see what the presenting slide manager. We still have an org context, we're just never using it, I guess. Or wait, are we? Oh, we're still using it here. Yeah, we just need to use it, I guess. Oh, we still need the div, that's why. Oh well. There we go. Now it's got an org ref. Let's do the same for this one. It says it's compiling. Let's see what it says. Okay, so if I go to this, now it's going to show me the org ID and the thing, and it gets it, no problem. Okay. What if I do a new one? Well, that's interesting. Present, that's why. This needs the orgId here. And it's because I wasn't using the trailing slash here. So let's look at all our history dot pushes and see if we have, or the leading slash. We do. All right, try that one more time. So it works. Okay. Let's memorialize it for the history books. Oh man, I'm so glad to get rid of this collection group bone crap. Let's give it tests. How about that? Users is the same. Boards. Should let people see a list of all boards and orgs they're a member of. Should not let people see a list of orgs they're not a member of. Look at this. Now we're going to do this because we know the orgId. That's what it should be. All right. In the far right one, I'm going to run npm start because that's not something you guys need to see. npm run emulator. This is going to be npm test. Nine passing tests. That works. Reading boards. They can see lists of boards they're a member of in an org. But they cannot see boards they're not a member of. And anybody can view any board with an org and board ID. But they can't. So that means Bob can see the board if he knows the ID and the org ID. But if Bob knows Alice's org, he can't just see all the boards. Why should he? But he can see one if he gets an invite because he knows the ID to both. All right, guys. That worked. Okay. All right. shit show. Cautiously optimistic, guys. Let's say we gotta make sure we show people what happened here, so they never forget, because it didn't allow. Full saga. Did I also note that I want to make sure I share that whole thing where the tests were timing out. Oh, I got rid of that already. So assuming that this app is working now, and it doesn't have that janky, weird collection group bullshit, the question in my mind is, can I continue to write a series of security rules that will fulfill the goals we had for this application, making it secure? Can I write a really good spec and then write tests for that spec and then write rules that pass those tests? That's what I'm really interested in. With this methodology, can that work? I think I'm gonna, since I'm on a roll, I'm gonna try to get that going today a little bit. I'm gonna take a first stab at it. It might take a lot longer than the time I have left to spend on it right now, but I'm gonna take a quick break and see if I can get that far. Okay, I'm back. So, I would describe my mood as cautiously optimistic. Once again, we have a method that I think could work here. I think it could work. So we're going to continue on with our original mission today. Now that we've solved some nasty weirdness with writing tests for our database. And if we can write all these tests for our database and get them to pass, then we might have an app. We might just have a damn app. And we haven't had to use any weird Firestore rules, because the weirder ones don't work. This is why I want everybody to use tools like this. It sounds weird, but because I don't want to be the only one dealing with this bulk. You know what I mean? I wish, anyway. So we got a big old list of rules here from our old branch. and some Firebase rules here. And we're going to try to get these over into this new world and have it work. So let's do it. Let's do it, dog. Let's do this thing. Boards. Reading boards. Writing boards. Did we do any of that yet? I don't remember. Firestore rules. Users. Boards. Maybe this will be a nice place for this. Nope. Too confusing. Boards. Reading boards. Should let people see this and this and this and this and this. Now what about writing boards? Cautious optimism here. Cautious optimism. Should let people create a board they own in an org they belong to. Very nice. So, Alice, we got to create Alice's org. And by the way, we're clearing out everything between each of these tests. We want to use reusable code here eventually, but we're going to worry about it later because last time we tried to do that, we tried to change too much at once. The whole thing got screwed up. So we've got an Alice org that she belongs to. Boards, add my board created by Alice. That's not how this works anymore. Alice collection orgs doc Alice org is how this works now. Doc Alice org boards, add my board created by Alice. Yeah. All right, that should work. Should not let people create a board they don't own. So this is going to be exactly the same. Except got created by Bob. Should not let people create a board in an org they don't belong to. Same thing, except this is Bob going to do it. See what happens. I don't think we've written any of these rules yet, so this should fail. Wonderful. So right now, they can do all this stuff. Oh, we don't want this anymore. Goodbye to all of that. Woof. Woof. Okay. That's how that works now. Is member of an org. And so that works there. Oh, we did have rules that... So that should have passed. Let's make sure we have a delete rule. Create a board that I don't belong to. Let's just copy the user delete rules. Dope. Okay. So this is just testing that nobody can delete boards, period. So it's a permission desired. False for create. Writing boards. Should not let people create a board in an org they don't belong to. So this should fail. Issues. Should not let people delete a board in an org they belong to. Should not let people delete a board in an org they belong to. False for delete. Oh, this is all should be fails. Is that enough? Oh, passing tests, folks. Okay, that's good. And the rules are good. Next. We're not doing this stuff. We probably will do it again soon, but we're not doing it right now. See, this is not really actually true. Should let people see So if you've got the board ID, you should be able to see a list of all cards. Let me try some real quick. Instead of doing all this, what if we did some before and after stuff now? Because these boards, you know, this has got to happen for all of these. I really hope this works because this is going to save us a lot of redundant code. Hey, they passed. Was that an error? They're just slow. Good. Well, we'll worry about. I should do it now, I guess. That's good. This is good. We just don't need it in here because, you know, that's good enough. That's fine. Well, let's just do it. It'd be nice to have this all set up and then just work. Let's see if that works. Baller. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this for now. Just cut it and say now we're back. So this card stuff, we're going to use that same method here. Describe cards before each. We're going to create Alice's organization. We're going to create Alice's board. We're going to add some cards for Alice and Bob. Create an organization, we create a board, we create 2 cards. Now, she'll let people see a list of all the cards on a board. Succeeds. What we want to do is Alice will read any single card. Some of these are duplicates. You know, they're in the before and then they're also in the test, but that's fine because we need, you know, data for some of these other tests. So it's all good. IMO. For each hook, should let org owner see a list of all cards on a board. Bob collection doc dot add is not a function. That is very true. Oh, I forgot to fix this shit. Alice Bob. Do I need Bill? I don't know what this. Bob add. Collection card add. Collection card doc, Bob card set. That's what we wanted. Should not let people create cards they did not write. Should not let people create cards they did not write. Bob's trying to create a card created by Alice. And we want it to fail, but it succeeded. So let's check our rules. Oh. Well, we haven't written any rules. What else should be failing that should not let non-art users create a card? Well, I don't know why that's working. Let's write some rules. You gotta be able to do that. You gotta be able to just do that. Create. That's all we require here. Let's see what happens if we run this. Hey, passing. Great. Very good. No. I'm going to make this Alice and Bob because I want to make sure that it's not because Bob's trying to write to Alice's org. $20 passing. Okay. Oops. Didn't want to do that. Got auto test for cards. Add. Next. Reactions. These are just called reactions now. We know now. We've learned. We know how this works now. But you can. Well, it's the same thing now. So now you have to add the before stuff. We don't need this one. I think we do need this actually. Not even need this. So we got an org, that's Alice's org, and Alice's board with Bob's card and Alice's reaction to Bob's card. Great. Any auth user get a list of all card reactions on a card. So that would be this. No, it needs to be Bob. Ah. Let's try that. We lost one. 2. Should not let auth users get a list of all card reactions. Expect them to fail by succeeding. All right, so we got to write the rules. Reactions. What are the rules? I think this one is here. You can delete reactions if you created it. You can update reactions if false. You can create reactions if you are the one who's creating the reaction. You can list the reactions if true. You can get the reactions if true. Actually, what we want to say is we wrote some stuff there that going a little broad. If user is signed in, we want to and that was in our Firestore security rules JavaScript quick start sample. I saw that, I remember, on GitHub. Is it this? Will I get lucky? No. No, where is it? Really should bookmark this or something. Where is it? I know there's like a link. Oh, it's collection. Is that it? It's a stretch. There we go. This cookbook, I think I saw this before. It'd be good to keep in mind. Take that for a spin, see how it goes. I should really be putting new rules at the top of this file so they get tested quicker and I don't have to wait for all the other ones. We haven't even started reactions yet. Here we go. Hey, passing tests. That's what I like to see. Okay, let's do it for writing. So update, we don't want them to update at all. Create, as long as you're making it, you can put it anywhere. Delete, as long as it's yours. Yeah. Okay. Should not let people delete each other's public card reactions. Take it for a spin. How we doing? I'm going to assume it's going to work, which is a massively bad assumption. And figure out what we got to do next. Users is the last one here. Have we done everything else? I think we have. Uh-oh, it failed. Well, that's what we get. Should not let people update any card reaction. So that succeeded, unfortunately. I also was able to update her own card reaction. But don't reactions say, oh, that should be false. There's a reason it was that way before. One more time. I'm just going to tweak with users here while I'm waiting. That's actually good. We want that to be the case. Shouldn't need this. Describe reading users. It should not be. This is actually going to be pretty similar. Wait, do we have this already? I think we do. Boards, users, yeah, we do. What we need is orgs. Hey, 29 passing, good stuff. Orgs and members. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. This is what we're here to do. Let's do it. Okay. Should not people see a list of all organizations. We don't have any before rules for this. Let's do that. need that. We definitely need that part. Try it. Oh, this is where this membership gets wacky. We might have to go back to... Yeah, I forgot about this part. Okay, we never really wrote these rules properly. Did we write them here? This is some alternate code that I want to save. If we change how we do members, just want to have it in my back pocket. Members are either going to be a collection or just a map on the organization. I don't know which one yet. Well, this doesn't make any sense. This organization and membership stuff is all tied up in itself, so it's kind of one big commit here. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to write everything as if members are a sub-collection, and then I'm going to see if I can make the whole add thing better by making them a map, but we'll worry about it later. Maybe. Worry about that later. This is really only ready. Here's where it gets interesting. Should let people create an organization if they are a member. Should not let people. You can create an organization all day. Should not let people update an organization if they are not a member. should let people create if they are a member. Alice Collection Organizations. She has a doc called Alice Org from before. But Bob trying to do that, not allowed. So that's that weird to do. That's organizations. Let's see what happens. Curious. Because we also have rules now for members, and that might get a little weird. Okay. For each hook should not let people see. We'll have to get to the errors here. Before each hook should not let people. Permission design, no value, error for create. So I'm trying to create something in before each for orgs. And I'm sending some null value, organizations before each. Oh, there's no doc Alice org. Try that. So how are we going to let people create orgs if we're not allowing them to update orgs they're not a member of? They have to be able to create an org that they're a member of. Can I do that in Firestore? I don't think any of these are going to be accurate. don't know, this is not going to be the right thing. A lot of errors here. 6 passing knife, that means we didn't get to a lot of them. Before each hook should not let people see us. What if we chill out about members for now? Now we're in, huh? Yeah, one failed. Oh, multiple fails. Is that it? Why? Is that why? I think so. Oh my god. It's taking forever to run these tests now because we have such good tests. Yep, that's probably why that one failed. What about this one? Property level is undefined. Update an organization if they are a member. Alice org member Alice set level owner. What are our rules for organization updating? It is admin of org. Is that the only other place we're using that for these guys right now? Yeah. So this isn't working. Let's say is owner of org for now. And then we don't have to worry about this admin layer because that's not what we're working on. So this isn't working. Databases, organizations, IT. I think it's data. Let's try that. We can worry about adding add admin role later. And that can happen sometime later, we don't care. There's no such things as admins, there's just owners and members. Hey, how do we do on these organizations? Hey look, our organization's tests are passing now. That is good news. I've been at this for a really long time, but I see that the end is in sight, and if I can get all this to be written in pass, that'll be a huge deal, because it would mean that we're at a good stopping point and we can sort of build organizations for real tomorrow. And I really want that to be the case. Before each hook, should let people delete their own card reactions. Well, these tests are just slow, I guess, because that was working. and it's not what we're working on now, so I'm going to let it go. Okay, let's commit this bit. All right, now let's do for members. How are we going to figure out members? If you're the owner of the org, you can delete a member. That makes sense. It should also be and. You can't delete yourself. We're going to worry about all this in a second, but can't delete yourself. Update members. Yeah. Sure. Create members. This is the weird one. Members can see, owners can create, update. So we just have to write these test pieces here, and I'm gonna add something else here. I'm gonna say Alice is here, and there's a we need a new one, Mary, for member. Doc Mary level member. Okay. Let's go to Mary. And Bob's not a member at all. Should let people see a list of members if they are an owner. If they are a member. So this is member is Mary. Should be able to do that too. Should not let people see a list of members if they're not a member. Bob, same thing, shouldn't be able to do it. Should let people see a single member if they are a member. If they are an owner too. That's Alice. This is Mary. Should not let people see a single member if they're not a member. Yep. Should let people add it as a member if they're an owner. Alice can do it. If they're only a member, Mary should not be able to promote Bob to an owner. Should not let people add edit a member if they're not a member. Bob should not be able to promote himself to an owner. Should let people delete a member if they're an owner. Alice can delete Mary. Should not let people delete a member if they're only a member. But Mary cannot delete Alice. And Bob can't delete Mary either. Or Alice. It's gonna be a wild ride, folks. Let's see what happens. Oh, time out. Come on. Before each hook, should not let people delete other people's user. Let's try again. Let's restart our emulator. Maybe it's just having trouble. Because we're getting random errors. And it's just a timeout error, which, while that's running, I'll see if I can't just find this Firestore testing rules example. Oh, you know what? I think I have the link here. Yeah, is it doing it again? What is it? Before each hook, should let any auth user. List of all card reactions before each hook. Yeah, we need to create the org first before we set her as an owner. Just making sure I do it everywhere else too. Need it here. Before each board, yes, we know that Alice is an owner, but we need to make sure that Alice also created that org. Same thing. Same thing. Last one. That's already done. Great. I'm going to look at my before eaches. It's top level, top level. Boards, there's 2 for boards, and then it's top level and top level. So let's go with those boards ones. What are we doing in boards? Create an org and a board. Before each, create an org and a board. Okay, so this should go to the top level. Because it's the same. Running it, see how we do. Flying through some errors. Oh my god. Members, read before each hook. Before each hook should not let people see a list of all. So before each in organizations, null error for create. Alice has to be the one to do it. To set Mary. Let's try that. Before each hook on organizations. So is this the problem? What if this was true? Ooh. Much better. Damn, this is fine. Okay. Should not let people add, edit a member if they're only a member. Yep. That's expected. Should not let people if they're not a member. So that's it. This is breaking it. We just have to fix this bit here. If your user is owner of org, or let's just say this. Oh, it would help to pass the orgId. Let's try the original one, actually. Nope. Let's try this simple one. If user is creator of org and we pass the org. Nope. Create if user is creator of org, organization ID. I think I've learned that lesson a couple times. Let's try that. Nice. Passing stuff. Let's stop and just try it with the version I think is actually right. Nope. What happened? Because we're not passing it. Can't get over that. An hour and 30 minutes. This might be a record, guys. Y'all. It might be a record, y'all. Guys and gals. We might be onto something new, uncharted territory, a record. 49 passing. Okay. We just wrote a bunch of pretty granular, clear security rules. I think they're accurate. There's a couple tweaks we want to fix. They're an exhaustive list of things that we want to do to secure our app, and we've written a huge set of exhaustive tests to evaluate all those scenarios. And the tests are passing. Add tests for members. Okay, I'm going to try to channel my cautious optimism here because I'm tired. We've been at this for a long time. There's so much in my head right now. I don't know if it's going to work or if it's not. I mean, like, it seems to be working. Let's see. You can see things. You can. We're going to test it later. So I don't want to call it right now because we don't know. We're not out of the woods. But there's a chance. There's a chance. There's a chance. We may have figured out how to structure our database with nested rules that give us the granularity we need, written a suite of back-end tests, and gotten all those tests to pass by writing correct rules, and the app is working. We're going to sleep on it, but maybe this thing's working. Maybe we have it working. Maybe. We'll see, but I'm a little excited. See you later.